So, ladies and gentlemen, spawning in the bottom left position of the map, that is Derelict Watcher as the Red Terran player from SK Telecom T1. It is Fantasy. He's currently up 1-0 in this series, just trying to advance a little bit further in the bracket here at Intel Extreme Masters. His opponent, spawning in the top right, the blue Protoss player from Lodem, it is Remember. Went for a very aggressive play on the last game. Difficult to make that sort of 10 supply gateway zealot mothership core stalker attack really work on big maps, especially maps as large as Whirlwind. On cross spawns, reaching your opponent is so difficult to actually get to his opponent. Now, we will have to see if Remember's going to be a little bit less aggressive at the starting phase. Maybe we'll have another gas build from Fantasy. He still has that option. But with this SCV finishing the depot, no gas art yet. We could see either Command Center first or Barracks play, still either option. And now with the SCVs queued up on this Command Center, it does look like it will be a very fast Command Center build. Probe starts the gateway and moves out to scout. And this is nice because he can kind of exploit this a little bit. We could see some nice probe harass from Remember with this scouting timing. We could see him just steal chrono out the fast zealot mothership core stalker, even with this more normally timed gateway, as a chance to just allow him to do a bit more damage as the SCV makes its way to the natural. He's checking around for proxies. Fantasy, of course. If he wins this game, he will advance in the bracket. And here this probe comes for Remember. And he will see the Command Center being built on the low ground. He can harass this SCV freely. Oh, there he goes. He does manage to glimpse it. And this SCV immediately being targeted. Fantasy sends 2 more to help cover it as the first barracks is now underway. And the gateway is complete, so with no gas being mined yet, it looks like Remember is just going to take a very fast Nexus. He's decided to fight this Command Center first play with a little bit of green. He won't be going for the same aggressive punish that we saw in the last map. And the probe sees that there's still only 1 barracks. Will there be a second one started up? Yes. And he does confirm this. It's really nice for the probe to be able to spot all of this type of play. Nexus is on the way. He doesn't have to start the Cybernetics core just yet. He can start mining the gas first, of course. And this is neat since Remember still has the defensive capabilities of a fast gateway if Fantasy was going to bring some pressure. But it's a nice reaction from the Protoss player to see him just completely cut out that gas, completely cut out the Cybernetics core just to get the Nexus faster. And now we see the second gas coming in as well. In Fantasy, I mean, he's just going to start putting out some Marines. Orbital command will begin. The question is, how greedy will Fantasy be? He actually has 2 SCVs crossing the map. This can happen. He's trying to chase down that probe that was able to harm some of his friends as he does make his way across the map. And I'm just wondering, let's take a look at this bracket. Fantasy and Remember will actually, the winner of this best of 3 plays against the winner between CPUT's Hero and StarTale Zero. Talk about some alliteration, so there's a potential that I believe StarTale Zero is actually, or ST0 is a Zerg player, so there's still going to be some matchup variety as we do have the mothership core completing and double gas being taken by Fantasy. With this third barracks, this is a very standard kosher setup from the Terran player. This is by no means anything unusual. This is basically the current bread and butter of Terran versus Protoss for both players, in all honesty. There's been nothing out of the normal realm of play that we're seeing from either player. And the Twilight Council is where things start to change up a little bit. Remember, could be going for a bit of a more popular recently build that revolves around a very fast Blink Stalker play. Now, he could also just get a robotics facility at any point or just play fast Dark Templar. But with this no gas in the natural just yet, I'm wondering, he won't have enough gas to actually get an upgrade when the Twilight Council completes. So what does he do with this is the real question. I assume he'll just bank up. And Blink play is not bad on this map. There's been some powerful 2-base Blink builds that can actually do a lot of damage in the early phase, and it actually is going to be Blink. I wonder if did he cancel something to get that out faster? I don't know, but now he's taking the gas in the natural. Well, at least one geyser. This SCV will be able to get the secondary scout. Very nice. If he can confirm this gas in the natural, would be neat. But no, he's going to run to the main base. How much is he going to see? This is the ever important question. There's actually nothing here to stop this SCV from getting that read, and he does spot the Twilight Council. He sees that Blink is being researched, so Fantasy, all of the cards are in his hands now. He knows exactly what's coming. There's the 3 gateways being added on now for Remember. If this SCV dies, but not before getting that very important information. It's going to be a 2-base, 4-gateway Blink Stalker attack. It's just really nice. He has an option, of course, of just taking a fast third base and using the Blink Stalkers defensively, but Fantasy's already been forced to make a little bit of a reaction. He is going to get that bunker up. We see the double Tech Lab set up. We see the Starport coming in, and honestly, he doesn't seem to have a setup that's very afraid of this. The Stalkers are making their way across the field with a probe, but there's actually nothing here to give high ground vision just yet, so it looks like just a standard Blink Harass build. And Fantasy's actually moving out with some Marines and a Marauder. I'm wondering what his goal here is. He's moved to the side. Perhaps he wants to try to catch this army out in the center of the field. It does look like that, but remember, we'll be able to back off. I mean, with the Blink, he has the potential for a lot of micro. And we see a second bunker being placed inside of the natural expansion, and now starting a bunker in the main base. He is worried about that Blink into the main. It's very threatening and difficult to deal with, especially once Stim completes. If you do use the Stim to try to chase down Stalkers before they're Medivacs out, suddenly you lose all of the hit points on your Bioforce, and there's not really much that you can do to actually take down your opponent's army. And well, a little bit of a flashback. We have the Robotics Bay a little bit later than on the last map, and the Double Forge a little bit earlier, so not cutting the upgrades as much. But with this many Stalkers, he can still bring a good amount of pressure. He's forced a huge defensive reaction from Fantasy. Coming up now, we see takes a shot. This Bioforce trying to give chase, and this factory will not be able to scout this game. He says, no, you can go back inside. Warp Prism being brought in at the same time. And with this kind of setup, you can get the 1-1 very quickly, and he has the option to go for Templar or Colossus. In fact, this could be something along the lines of a very fast 1-1 Colossus timing, only because the commitment to Colossus, if he wanted to go Storm, he already had the tech path open to get the Templar Archive. So he's really just rounding everything out. And it kind of gives me the feeling we might see that Blink Colossus, Blink Stalker Colossus army composition. He does run out here, does manage to snag one Stalker, but with the Blink, it's very hard to actually catch these forces. And as we can see, it's almost like he did a free storm to this army, basically. He cut away 10, 20 hit points from every single unit. Every time you can make the Terran Force Stim, it's so nice. And we do have that charge on the way. The third command center has started as well. The Warp Prism will be here to try to do a bit of damage. He's loaded up a Zealot as this Bio Army pushes across. Now the Observer, keep in mind, sees everything. He just wants to force out Stims, takes a couple of shots and backs off. With these many sentries and these Zealots, it'd be suicide for Fantasy to press up this ramp. Does he know about this Warp Prism? I don't think so. 4 Zealots are going to get dropped inside the main base right as everything leaves. The Observer sees the production. He's actually hit a little bit of a block here as far as producing units goes. And now with the small engagement, this Colossus makes engaging very difficult for Fantasy. He needs Vikings, but here's the Warp Prism in the main base. The Zealots getting on top of these SCVs. There is a missile turret here to help mess with this. Some Marines trying to help fight at the same time. And we could see, remember, just go into the back of the main base, warp in some more Zealots, and continue to distract this force. But it turns out he actually just wants to take his third base. He'll chill back here for a little bit. A few more Zealots were brought in. This is very nice for the Protoss player, being able to just get these unit kills. This bunker in the main base actually did end up being useful, but only 4 SCVs were actually killed during all of this. So really nice defense from Fantasy, not losing too much to this aggression. And of course, with that Warp Prism being gone, he doesn't have to worry about that drop harass anymore. And looking a little bit further, charge is on the way. We do have the +2/2 coming in and a commitment to the Colossi. Extended Thermal Lance, continued Colossus production. At this point, we could see him out on the Templar Archives and just go for a 3 Colossi timing with some Archons, but he doesn't really have to. He can sit back, take the third base, saturate it. He's not particularly vulnerable. We have some great positioning of units. This Xel'Naga Watchtower, as well as the Observer by the third base, could spot any drops heading along the north side of the map. The south side, a little bit open towards that third base, but this Zealot does see the army approaching. Likewise, the Observer in the center of the map. That Templar Archives I mentioned is coming in at the same time as the completion of the Extended Thermal Lance. How many Vikings are here? We do have a hallucinated Colossus, a very nice threatening maneuver, basically trying to intimidate his opponent. He's ruffled up his feathers, as it were, and it's I mean, he hasn't actually seen it yet. There's the scan, so he knows that one of them is fake, which is very important. being able to identify that. He can try to target down the real ones, and that's what's actually going to happen. The Zealots trying to give a little bit of chase. First Colossus will topple. The time we're pulling this Bio Army in place, all of the Vikings have been cleaned up. There's still one Colossus. He has to stem out of the Time Warp, and a lot of damage actually taken by the Terror player here as far as the army goes. Did kill that one Colossus, which is nice, and all of the Zealots, so he's still in an okay position. With the third base now being saturated by, remember, he's got to be feeling better about himself. We're seeing that transition into the Storm. The Templar, of course, can feed back these medevacs if Fantasy tries to bring some pressure. The only thing that's nice about that bad engagement for Fantasy, or at least that the amount of damage he took, is that the medevacs have very low energy, so feedbacks won't be too dangerous. And he actually already has Ghosts out. He's pulled the SCVs. We see Fantasy just making the ultimate commitment to this attack. It will be hard to make work. Archons are very good versus SCVs, but with these Ghosts, it's all going to come down to the EMPs. He has enough Vikings to kill off these Colossi. What really matters is how bad is he going to get force fielded at this ramp. The sentries are waiting. The Ghosts are here. Where are the EMPs? He's going to hit a little bit of this army. Doesn't look like he really hit too much, though. The Bio Army being able to engage at the bottom of this ramp. Remember, his units are being funneled. Fantasy still looking great. All of the Vikings, lone one, have been eliminated, though, and this means that pressing in is only going to get more and more difficult as Archon still adding in a lot of splash damage. Fantasy is bringing everything he's got. Can he wrap it up, though? Another Colossus has entered the field. He does manage to pick off the one that was standing before, but he's taking so much damage. Fantasy needs to pick off this next Colossus, but with Viking reinforcements, it will work. And these last few Zealots are being brought in. Is it going to be enough? I don't think so. Fantasy may have done it right here, ladies and gentlemen, with a 2-0 as these few Zealots try to get in some counter damage, but there's just nothing here. Archon's going to be warped inside of the main base to try to stave this force off, keep the main base at the very least of Remember alive. He has that third base continuing to bolster this production, but the Templar Archive will be shot down next. All he can warp in are regular gateway units. No more Archons for him, and immediately one gets sniped as he presses into the main base. The Zealots charging down towards the ramp, getting a little bit cluttered here with the move command, but still enough medevacs to help keep this force hanging in there for just a little bit longer. Those Zealots with the +2/2, so difficult to kill, but Fantasy just seems to have a little bit too much. Force fields do block off that ramp. I feel like picking off some of these units at the third base is incredibly important to his goals here. The only thing to keep in consideration is that Fantasy has these mules, dropping them at the third base, keeping the income going. And, you know, the longer this game goes on, obviously, the more energy these medevacs recover. So the Zealots are going to come in from the back while the probes and these sentries try to engage. Fantasy smartly lifts up and pulls away these Vikings that were landed. Must rise once again. And this game is surprisingly close as far as the army supply, as far as the supply goes, but the army supply does favor Fantasy. There's about 20 more workers on the map for the Protoss player, but remember, has those very difficult to deal with Zealots. They have a lot of hit points, and with the +2/2 upgrades, pose a significant threat to Fantasy's Marines. If you can get close enough, there's the drop of the main base trying to focus on the pylons that are covering the production. One of them gets sniped away immediately. The next one, 6 gateways left with nothing to power them, and he's just going to kite back in the main base at the same time, pressuring that third. The Zealots getting treated apart. The probes are being pulled as well, and he just lifts up, pulls away these sentries with the Guardian Shield. Not going to be able to do too much at all. The last of the Zealots are picked up at the third base, and remember, down to 37 supply. There's the GG. Fantasy takes game number 2 in a convincing 2-0 victory here at the Intel Extreme Masters Singapore Korean qualifier.